Sup homies, my name's Mike S, and I don't believe AI is a bubble in any meaningful way. Now look, to answer this question as robustly and completely as possible is outside the scope of this video. Instead, what I want to do is just ask a core question, which is, are investors overpaying for these companies? And here's how I want to approach that. I want to look at who they're investing in and for how much, at what valuation, and see if that has anything in common with bubbles of the past that we can all agree are bubbles, or perhaps another space. Now, before we get there, here's how this kind of popped in my radar. A streamer named Primetime, he did a video and he mentioned in passing that AI is a bubble, and even Sam Altman agrees with him on that matter. And so it kind of set off some red flags, in part because I think this is the easiest thing to say. I really do believe to suggest that AI is simply a bubble is the easiest way to look at, and that's really the point of this video. The point of this video is to figure out a more specific or helpful way to describe what's happening. Now, what Sam does say in that article that Prime quotes is going to be the focus of this video. But let's see what the exact quotes are. So I've got it pulled up right here, and here are the exact quotes. He starts on by saying, are we in a phase where investors as a whole are overexcited about AI? Sam says his opinion is yes. But he concludes, and this is the key piece, and what I'm going to spend the majority of this video talking about, is he says, Sam's personal belief, he said, my personal belief, could be wrong, is that on the whole, this is going to be a huge net win for the economy. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to look at some of these companies that are receiving money, and let's see if we can draw any parallels. So are investors paying too much for these companies, right? What we have here in front of us is a list of, if not exhaustive, comprehensive list of all the companies which have raised money in the summer of 2025. What you'll notice immediately from this list is that most companies raised somewhere between $3 and $100 million, and did so at valuations well below $1 billion. You know, one such example is a company called SuperDial. Their goal is to automate healthcare's endless phone calls. They basically put a bunch of agents in a series. So you use SuperDial, you call a number, an agent answers, and then it routes you to agents. Now they raised only $15 million on, using past behavior as a guess for what the valuation is, at likely a $75 million post-money valuation. So we're not talking enormous sums here. We're talking about a company with a good idea, a good market, right, for their product, leveraging the core technology, which is LLMs, in a meaningful way, or at least they claim to. But it's not completely unreasonable to think that if you're a healthcare company, you want to improve your ability to handle incoming calls. And if this company has put together these agents in a series and they're able to do it, I mean, nothing pops as super outrageous. And if you go through this list of companies which have received funding, you're going to see this story time and time again. If you want this list, and run your own data, your own analysis of it, I'd be happy to provide it. So I'd be remiss not to mention Anthro's enormous round in the first week of September, last week of August 2025. The valuation was absurd, right? $183 billion, and they raised $13 billion more dollars. This is on the heels of XAI raising $10 billion this past summer, and enormous amounts of money to both those two companies. Now, they do border obscene, but I don't think anyone's going to argue that there's not a lot of value at a company like Anthro. It doesn't reek of a bubble as much as it reeks as overpaying. The other company that I think that does give bubble vibes would be Thinking Machines Lab. If you don't know Thinking Machines Lab, I did a video on it. They raised the largest seed round in history by a nautical mile when they did $2 billion this past summer. They were founded by OpenAI's former CTO, Mira, and they don't even have a product. None, zero. So that kind of, gives the scent of bubble, let's say. But in large part, as I mentioned, I think the fundamental point is we've got a new technology. We've got a bunch of companies trying their hand, like Taylor, for example, at using that technology towards a business or economic end at something like reasonable valuation. And I think unreasonable is the only way to describe the financing and valuations among NFTs in 2021. I thought we would take a look at 3 companies from that period of time. Let's start with the big one, OpenSea. Their last round in January 2022, they raised $300 million at a $13.3 billion valuation. Today, their valuation has dropped to just over $1 million, and what amounts to an 88.7% drop in valuation. Another company, kind of a cool company, Unstoppable Domains. It was a blockchain-based domain name provider, currently valued at $400 million. Raised money at its peak in July 2022 at a valuation of $1 billion. Effectively a 60% drop in just 3 years. We're not done there. We still got Animoca Brands, currently valued at approximately $1.5 billion. Peak valuation of $5.9 billion in July 2022. And I'm going to put all links to all of the valuation information. A lot of it comes from Pitch Deck, but not exclusively. So to call AI, and the companies using AI, leveraging it, the investors investing it, to call it a bubble, puts it in the same category as what we saw with NFTs. And I don't believe that's true at all. You know, as somebody who's been in the startup space for over a decade, it has far more in common with what happened with iOS apps, web apps, cloud computing, where we have a technological breakthrough. Folks are interested in creating products using that breakthrough, and investors are interested in investing in it. There are some obscene amounts of money, like we saw with some of the NFTs. I'm thinking namely of thinking machines here. But by and large, what we see is a lot of cool companies with cool products, and we'll see how many of them succeed. If you like what you heard here, give me a follow, give me a sub. I cover software engineering on my Twitch channel. I'd love to see you guys all there. All right, peace.